Brother Mark, and I'm one of the co-hosts this evening. This show is created and produced by the People-Pueblo Party, which believes in common sense politics for the people, the planet, and the animals. It is also sponsored by the People's Health Project Incorporated, and they're the ones who provide us the resources to actually produce this show. So thanks, to both of those groups. And you can see the logo on the screen here for the People-Pueblo Party. And we have some very special guests tonight. And Sister Jessica can't be here tonight with her COVID update. But what I didn't want to replace her update, but I just wanted folks to think about how other people around the world are dealing with COVID, and think about how other countries are being so much more effective than we are. In the United States, you have over 200,000 deaths. You have about over 1 million people with the COVID infection. It's rising. And I think this is one of the Thanksgivings, quote unquote, Thanksgiving holiday. For many of us is a day of mourning, but for other folks it's Thanksgiving, in which there was the most amount of traveling. So we can expect that COVID is not going to be under control anytime soon in this country, and it's going to keep spiraling out of control. Now, what we're focusing tonight is on culture, and how can we use culture to save lives during COVID. So that's what our program is going to focus on tonight, and we hope people participate in the chat, and we'll post up your comments and your questions and have you become part of our discussion. So without any further ado, let me see if Bill is ready. See if he's ready for his welcome statement.
Yeah, Bill's ready. I want to piggyback off of you, Mark. Welcome everybody. He's right. This is one of the most popular, most traveled times of the year. People, it's traditionally a family-related holiday. It's become that. It's morphed into that. Even though conscious people, such as the people that's in tune and the host, Mark, myself, and others, realize that this is a mournful holiday. It really is. It's not really a day for much rejoicing, other than if it motivates you to think of your family and think of others. But the origin of this holiday and what it was done to people that poured their heart and soul out to help foreigners, newcomers, we always should remember the indigenous man when we think in terms of this holiday. And in terms of what Mark was talking about, which I have to give Mark credit because I never thought in terms of we want to open your minds as the possibilities because everything is possible. Possibility is endless if you just open up your mind. In terms of how culture plays a role on the spread or the lack or the non-spread of this pandemic. In this particular case, the COVID-19. So I just want to welcome everybody. Want to just, I want to mention this too because it was around this time, 14 years ago? 14 years ago, around this time, a joyous occasion around holiday time, certain young man was about to get married. And I just like to keep everything in perspective, knowing that our struggle was wide reaching, and that young man was Sean Bell. So I think I want to dedicate this show to him and his family. When we think about people and the love within us, we can't forget these innocent warriors that was forced into this fight and into our plight. So I have nothing else to say more.
All right, thank you, brother. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show an image, and then we're going to bring our guest on and start our discussion. So this here is an image from Germany. And this person here is writing a mural, okay? And the mural says, the coronavirus is a wake-up call and our chance to build a new and loving society. Now, we know that the capitalist system around the world, especially in the United States, is in decay. You can tell by the response to the coronavirus. You know, every state is doing their own thing. The federal government is absent. Wearing masks, which is critical to save lives, is an option, and it's individualized. And no society can last long where everybody just pulls their own way and doesn't care about the collective. You know, a lot of people, right wing people, talk about patriotism, but there's no patriotism in their heart to save the people of this country and to save this country. So is this false, arrogant, chauvinist, white supremacist patriotism that is contributing to the decay in this society. And I think that we have to take our cues from this person here in Germany who's writing this on a wall is a form of art, letting us know that the old society is decaying. And so it's up to us, people who care, people who love one another, people who want to save lives, to really build a new, loving society. So, without further ado, I'm going to invite our guest to come, and I hope you enjoyed this image here from Germany. It comes a long way, and to me, it was just very inspiring and telling of what we need to be doing. So, the first person I want to bring on is a sister, very well known by our organization, especially you, Bill. So the sister, her name is Mariposa Fernandez. She's a poet, an educator, and an activist. Welcome, sister. Welcome to our space. Glad to have you here.
You're welcome.
Peace, mi gente. What's up, everybody? It's good to be here. And I feel you, even though we're apart from each other, I feel connected. And thank you for inspiring me. Because honestly, I've been feeling mad cynical and tired. You know, one of my primary responsibilities is being one of the primary caretakers of my father, who's 88 years old, who has 4 serious illnesses that are considered comorbidities. He has COPD, emphysema, congestive heart disease, and diabetes. And so it's been very stressful. I also have older siblings. I'm the youngest, me and my twin sister of my siblings. So I have an older brother and sister and brother-in-law. And basically that means that there are 4 senior citizens in my family, in my immediate family. So I don't live with them, but we're close. And obviously we have to protect each other.
Right.
I have been writing sporadically, but you inspired me to write something, Mark, with this invitation.
Now hold on, don't read it yet, because we're going to bring on our other guests, and then we're going to open it up. All right. So don't go.
Okay.
All right. So the next person we want to bring in is a brother who has done amazing work in the community, very inspiring work, and comes highly recommended by Sister Mariposa for sure. Right. And the brother is a spirit child. He's with the Maroon Party for Liberation. He's engaging our community with free political education every Maroon Monday and occasional Sundays for revolutionary praxis. And for those of y'all who don't know what praxis is theory and practice together, because the theory by itself ain't going nowhere and the practice by itself ain't going nowhere. So welcome, brother. Great to have you here today with us.
Peace. Thank you for having me. And you just gave me a little anxiety, Mariposa, when you said you had created something. I was like, oh my God, I gotta. You put me. I felt like I was like at a show, and I was like, oh man, I don't have something right now. So like, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to present. So that's appreciative. Thank you so much for the invitation. Yeah, we just been doing our thing here, and I'm looking forward to this discussion and figuring out how we can have culture as a weapon that we always use for liberation, but culture as a weapon for the preservation of our humanity, right? In this particular context with COVID and any other dis-ease that's coming from the outside. So thank you so much for having this discussion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have one more guest, and the next guest is a part of our organization, and Bill calls him the brother with the suit. But he goes by the title of Robert in Love, and he's a poet. And remember, Bill, when we did the NBA demonstration of Pickett, he came out there and really impressed us with his art. So I'll just bring him on. Let me see. What do I have to do here? Okay. 1 second. Okay.
How you been, Mariposa?
I'm good,
Okay.
Bill.
What is up? The brother with the suit. I don't got my suit on right now, but here I am. How's everybody
Camouflage.
doing?
All right, maintaining.
Where'd brother Mark go? What happened?
He went to go get his suit.
I feel like it was like a Superman thing. Like he disappeared and
He
came.
transformed.
Yeah.
Maybe he
Yeah, man. Oh, now there's 3. Now there's 4. Oh, there we go.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna Bill, if you don't mind, I'm gonna have you kind of facilitate the discussion so I could do some of the technical stuff, right? And so, but before we do that, I wanted to share one more cultural piece, and then Bill, I'm gonna turn it over to you and to our guests, and then we'll just keep having the discussion, and I will also be facilitating the comments in the chat. Okay, so that way we could have a nice, full, rich discussion. But I wanted to share one more piece, and then we're gonna open it up. And Mariposa, I want to hear what you wrote. So that totally has to happen. All right.
Everything is changed nowadays. Funny how we can't even play no more. It was only yesterday when we party every day. Now it's blood on the dance floor. All because of the virus. But it can't kill the power inside us to stand together and defeat Corona.
أنا وياك البارح كنا هانيين نقولوا هانية. تبع things are changing لكل قلب نرد شوية. نخرجوا إن شاء الله نعيشوا إن شاء الله. Cause nobody's safe until everybody's safe. Tuamini la lolita kuisha. Na tena tutalishinda tu. Tupambane hii vita. Tumshinde COVID-19. Tuna kila sababu ya kuwajali wengine. Tafadhali tujilinde, tuwalinde, tuamue sasa.
One day my people, one day we'll be celebrating. Cause this plague is over. Nothing will be separating us. Cause nobody is safe until everybody is safe. Oh, everybody is safe. Oh.
Rain no go fall forever. Sun goes to shine, my sister. We go beat Corona if we stand together. If we stand in solidarity, we no go beat too far down, far down. Yeah, me I like that. Me I like you and I know you like me too. Me I love you and I know you love me too. We gonna spread the word and not divide us so. Nobody is safe until everybody is safe. Oh, me I want to be safe. Oh, eh, oh. Oh, me bush and cheese. Feels like we lost me, babe. We'll pick up the pieces, start over. All the tears will be all over. Can you mean it will be much closer? For now we scream and shout. One day my people,
Mark, I'm not muted,
Oh,
am
there you go. I hear you
I?
now.
All right, you can hear me. All right, so what do you think about the piece? Anybody?
Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Were you able to tap into the lyrics? All right. I'm just gonna comment on the piece real quick, and then we're gonna go from left to right, and we can get started, and we can hear what anybody wants to say, or any pieces that anybody might have wrote. I was jotting down some of the lyrics. It was saying nobody's safe until everybody's safe, and the virus can't defeat us if we stand together, and it won't separate us. And I wrote a little adaptation. In fact, the virus has actually brought us together. If you think about the social, it's been a double pandemic. The virus has brought upon the social awareness that we all knew all this time, but globally, it's been a pandemic, well overdue. So, in actuality, the virus, where it was created or formed, it has brought us together. So, I mean, that's why we're here too today to talk about how this virus, the culturalness of it, how it actually can help and bring us together. So, on Spirit Child, you want to comment on that? Your feelings on that?
Yeah, thanks. Definitely. I was just figuring out this platform, and I want to say peace to Esperanza. How you doing? And yeah, I was one. There's a few things. One is interesting that it's in English, right? Subtitles. So I feel like it's really for us to read and understand and comprehend because we're kind of behind as far as like understanding how to deal with this pandemic. Um, and that's really prevalent in the way they're presenting it, right? Like usually a lot of artists, in the most part, in mainstream, like they defer to English because that's like the popular language and the most people, whatever. But I feel like this, I was feeling when I was listening to it and reading the subtitles, I was like, oh, this is specifically for like all of you that are not paying attention, and a lot of us, I mean, we point the finger to us, right? Us, US. And a lot of times, we could do better. We could do a lot better. Um, so I think as far as art and music, it's important to spread that information, that knowledge. We've been trying hard to do like online performances um, in a way where people are involved, open mic sessions or creative, even our liberation school, right? Like what we're doing is all online, virtual. And then we also, I was just kind of reading in the chat a little bit about, I think Robert wrote something about de Blasio and infected schools. I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, and um, because of immunization and all that other stuff, we've been homeschooling from before. However, it's allowed us to partake because of this pandemic in their actual school systems this year because they're not afraid of our children who have been home birthed and are not immunized to be present in the classroom. We have to also be conscious of this digital divide, right? Within the education system, people who don't have access to, it brings us closer to those who have that access, but it also brings us further apart for those who have never had that access. And I think we also have to pay attention to that. And I have been really grateful that we've been organizing internationally in this capacity, but I've also noticed that there's a lot of students who are dropping out, a lot of students who are not engaged anymore because they feel left out due to this pandemic in a different spectrum, So that's what I have to say on that. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I think you brought up some good points in terms of how the arts is bringing us together. Whether it's through we just sing song or the show or the mural that Mark opened up with. But it shows how there's a lot of relatable ways that it's bringing us together. It's not just the one way. And we've always been artistic people, and everybody has always tapped off our artistic ability, even though they want a lot of times claim it as their own. We realize that it's more than one vehicle. It's not one. It's not a one size fit all, and it's important. Excuse me. It's important for us to understand that and tap into that. So I thank you for those comments, Soul Child. So I'm in. swing it to Robert. You like to comment on how you think this culturally is having the culture is having a good effect or positive effect on bringing us together with COVID-19, or anything that you like to comment on pertaining to it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the time and attention. Appreciate the effort and the energy. It's really important. I think one of the things that I was conversing with Mark yesterday, and the value of relationships. I think now a lot of people are like, wow, the friends that I have, the family that I have, let me say hi, let me say what's up, let me reach out, let me make a phone call. Mark periodically has made phone calls to people, just check up on people and say hi, how you doing, how you feeling, how's everything, and sometimes, when you do that, generally people are like, yeah, no, things are good, but every so often, of course, people are going through a lot of stuff, and so I think the important thing is like embracing both, that it's not only good. There's lots of beautiful things that have occurred. I think most importantly, it's the value that we've given to relationships and to our existence, because things are so unstable in many regards. You don't know economically how things are going to play out, work-wise, businesses, and so things are so up in the air that it's kind of like, it's hard to embrace, but in a way it's like it's good to develop the ability to see chaos and stay calm, and among chaos embrace people. And it's not easy, but I think if you develop the ability to be in a chaotic space and build strong relationships and keep that moving forward. I mean, I think that's everything. I think that's one of the things that struck a chord with me, and as far as the piece that was shown earlier, the musical piece, it's like together, basically we'll be good. We can move forward if we can build and create bond and unity, etc. And I was like, yeah, I am 150% behind that. I believe that fully. I think that, in a nutshell, is much more important than some of the debates and arguments that people get into relating to people's belief systems or perspective on how society should move forward. I'm like, it's really like, yo, can we get along with people that we disagree with? And like, I think that's gold right there. I think that is the key. Is like, how can you be like, hey, you know what? I don't agree with you, but let's keep it conversational, because that's the example that we're setting. And I think what's unique about New York is that, it's like all eyes on us type of thing. Something happens over here, it's news in the world. I'm not sure like what happens in small countries. Like I can Google it, but it won't be in the New York Times for sure. But things that happen over here appear in their newspapers. So I think that we set the precedent, and also too, because so much stuff in the media is not being covered. I think for those that live a positive and alternative lifestyle, because New York has a bad rep, whether it be New York from the 80s, has a certain reputation now. If you travel and you're from New York, people are like, oh bro, like you got the cooties, I don't want you near me type of thing. So that being said, I think we can leverage the influence that New York has on the world, and set an example, man, because I think New York has a certain gusto, and I think what if we can cultivate a community and an influence that's like, yo, people from New York really know how to get along really well. And I think, man, that would be like, that would really pivot things, I think, on a global scale. So that's one of the positives that I see within my circles, where people are learning how to like bond more, and they're looking out for their families more and things like that. And clearly things aren't perfect. There's a lot of work to be done, but yeah, man, I'm big on taking ownership of what you can, and maybe we'll get more into that a little bit later.
I thank you, because just to elaborate a little bit more on what you're saying, I agree that uh, a lot of good have came out of this COVID-19 situation. Um, and I say that to a lot of people. If you put the deaths aside and maybe some of the financial hardship because people weren't able to go to work, when you when you put the deaths aside, there's a lot that you can take from it. Because one of the things, and you use New York in particular, New York is a hustle bustle, fast moving town, city, whatever you want to call it. But it made people take time to slow things up. It made people take stock of their life. You might have been in a relationship that might not have been the best of relationship, but you was able to not address it properly because you were always on the go, and maybe you had conflicting schedules. But when everybody was locked down, you had to face the reality of what your relationship was, and that was good. Maybe you realize that I really don't need to be with this person, or I really do miss this person, because maybe you lived in different households. You look at the society. You looked at pre COVID-19. You looked at the smog in California. You looked at the smog in China and whatnot, and saw how the earth replenished itself. The earth took charge. These are things that was out of our control, but these are good things that came out of it. You look at like I mentioned early on during my introduction, talk about the pandemic. It became a perfect storm because everybody was sitting still, and because everybody had to pay attention to pretty much the TV, because that's where most of this information is being disseminated. But you still had the police outside killing innocent people of color. So because of that, and people couldn't put it off and say, "Well, that ain't my problem," or the surrenders, but keeping a hustle and bustle life. There was no hustle and bustle, and we was inside for so long that it became to a crescendo, and you had this global movement, which who knows what child of the of 2010 or 2015 or 2000 that's going to take this and what they learn through just living through it, what they're going to ascertain it to be because of this. So
Mm.
I agree with you. There's a lot that did come out of this. So I commend you on that, because we got to continue to think outside of the box with the things that before us. Don't just look at the doom and the gloom. They on TV they talked about when it was at a height in New York. They talked about the death rate each and every day. But to me, they should have put more of a premise on 99% of the people was surviving it. And you have to look at it. You have to look at all angles, all aspects of it. So I agree with you. It was a lot to digest, but it was also a lot to appreciate because of that. So I thank you, Robert.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Your opinion and your spirit child as well. So that brings us to Mariposa. And would you like to elaborate any way, shape, or form in terms of the pandemic, COVID-19, culturally or through your prism?
Thank you, Bill. I want to give a shout out to Esperanza Martel. SB, hello. I want to say hello to SB also. And on the note that you ended with, Bill, that in the media, they were giving us the numbers of the deaths and those that were infected, but not the numbers of people who were surviving. And in the beginning of this pandemic, it was Esperanza Martel that kept me focused on that. So every day she would, or every time we spoke in the beginning, she would highlight that for me. So that was a great reminder to focus on that, not necessarily to discount the information that the media provides, but that it's important that we look at the entire picture and not focus on just what they want us to focus on, right? Because that does have that has a psychological impact. The reality is that for many of us, in terms of the Black community, the Afro Latinx community, and people of color in general, in our communities, there were refrigerated trucks in the right down the block, I'm right by Jacoby Hospital. There were refrigerated trucks behind Jacoby Lincoln Hospital, and that's something that we shouldn't dismiss, and that we should not have amnesia about as we take precautions. Now that we're in the flu season and that the numbers are going up, I think it's important. That video that you shared, I loved it because it reminds us that we do need to think of each other, and we need to, keep everybody safe. So that was beautiful. There are other pandemics as well. I mean, in addition to the obvious ones, like racism and capitalism, there's also what we've internalized, that individualism that we've internalized, and that we also see in our communities. It's not just Republicans that are subscribing to, I'm referring to the ones in the Midwest and the Trump supporters. It's not just those folks that are refusing to wear, masks. So on the bus or the subway, I've just noticed you'll see there'll be at least 2 or 3 people, maybe sometimes one person, without one. And I just wonder, when I see that, I just wonder what are they thinking? What leads to that, and how can we build community, and how can we build this consciousness where we're all caring about each other and where we have concern for each other. So that's what I'm just thinking about. Why is it that everybody does their best, but you'll have that one neighbor, you don't know who it is, but you know that there's that one neighbor on your floor that's too lazy to throw their garbage down the chute, and they'll leave it on the floor as if their mother, or I don't know, it's somebody else's job to pull the handle down and throw your garbage down the chute. Come on, man, just throw your garbage down the chute. It's to benefit all of us, because if we get an infestation in this building, I mean, we're living collectively, and I'm using this as a metaphor of other things that I get frustrated with. So you see that this selfishness and this individualism that is a part of Western society, we're colonized, and we need to address that mindset, and decolonize, so that we can return to, where our communities, the values that are truly from our people. Those are kind of the things that I'm thinking about. But this pandemic, it's like another metaphor. When the lockdown has you stay home and you're used to being on the go, and because you're home now, you're noticing the cracks and the things that escaped your attention. You're like, oh, yes, there are other things, in addition to white supremacy, there are other things that we need to address as a community. Things in our own family, because even within a family, it's hard to create consensus, full consensus, because what makes me feel safe may not be what all the members of my family. I have one member in particular that there are some things that I might be doing that, even though I'm wearing a mask and I'm being as safe as possible, and I've totally stopped socializing, I think my life is very different, but hers is even more so. But how do we create balance so that we're all feeling safe? Those are the things I'm asking myself and people, in my life. Conversations. So the culture is important, but it also needs to include communication, and that we keep, Robert was saying, that we keep, even if we disagree, that we keep the conversation and we keep the connection going. And Even if I don't have the energy to respond to a text or to pick up the phone, I can. And what I have been doing is, sending letters and postcards. Like a condolence, I sent a few sympathy cards that, I can't afford to send flowers, but I can put like a pack of seeds that person can plant seeds, in the spring. It is an emotional time that it's difficult. Like, how do we comfort each other during this time? It's about being creative, I think.
Can't. I think you froze up. Can't hear you.
I just stopped talking.
Oh, did you? All right. Well, your mom was okay. All right. Were you done?
I think so. I'm seeing that there's a comment from Jose Alfaro. Hi, Jose. He said it feels like the value of cultural workers has decreased with everything being online. How does the group of you as cultural workers feel your work has been affected by the pandemic, and what might you say to other cultural workers? I'm just figuring that out. I don't know. What do you think, Spirit Child?
I definitely saw that comment and I was like, oh, I want to talk about that. We work internationally, so I feel like internationally people have a different perspective, right? Like I appreciate, Mark, the political education and information you sent prior to for this in Southeast Asia, and like how they're dealing with this pandemic and a sense of communalism that exists. And also, I work a lot in Belgium and in Berlin, and we work with youth and young people in prison, right? So since March, we've been telling them, yo, online curriculum, I think so. I think you should open that pathway to have young people, older people, adults who are in prison have access to that. I think as revolutionaries, we need to open that portal. And I've been talking to some people here because I also work at Rikers and Sing Sing. And Tommy, a brother who started this Right Now project, they employed us to develop like a video kind of like curriculum, like some lesson plans for our young people. I've been going to Rikers for years. They have a TV screen. There's no reason why our young people don't have access. And I think for us, it's up to us to push this paradigm, right? Like, what's the conversation? Okay, so we're in a pandemic. We've been in pandemics all our lives as revolutionaries. So how do we make the best of it? Now, these institutions should employ us as artists to fulfill that slot. If you're a teaching artist, if you're a performing artist, you used to do concerts in prisons and schools. Now you have the access to do that. The city should have a budget for that. Everybody has a budget for that. They just be holding out. But like, if you have that money there, you should give it to people who can engage the young people, the adults, or whoever it is, to engage them in some kind of dialogue. And art is that dialogue. Like, that's what we go there for. We go there to heal, to have a form of expression, to teach others how to express themselves, to be vulnerable, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no reason why, as artists, we are unemployed. Now, I'm used to being unemployed. As a revolutionary artist, I'm definitely used to being unemployed. However, I think there's an opening for artists in this virtual world to obtain the resources from institutions, because I've done some contemporary work with some orchestrated bands and stuff like that, which actually pay well. And they should look and see how to off-scale this balance or imbalance, right? Because usually the people who are broke and who don't have the money are people probably who are not playing classical music or instruments, right? So it's going back to the whole other essence, right? So now, as hip-hop artists, myself, like, we have to think of, like, how do we go back to 1973? How do we get the cardboard box on the street and do our B-boy, B-girl stance? Because that's what needs to happen right now. How do we make ourselves relevant? Like, you have young people that you cannot deal with, right, or engage in any particular way, we should have access to that, and you should pay those people who have access or that information within. So I've been trying to push the envelope, mostly internationally. We can't travel. Here, they're really behind. Like Rikers is so archaic. Sing Sing, all our prisons are just, they're built that way for design. Like they're still doing paperwork, printing, and all that other stuff. And it's just like, yo, clearance, like you should have some computers here. You know, like there's a reason why they're so behind, and they allow our people to not be up with the times. I think, you know, if you develop an online curriculum, you get paid for a show. And that's easy to do. Do a concert, 5 minutes, 10-minute performance, submit it, get the same performance or money that you would receive if you were there live. Because we have that money floating. We just are not pushing these people to think creatively on how to distribute it. That's my thoughts on it.
Can I share a piece that? Can I share it? Am I muted?
That's the enemy speaking. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Mariposa, it sounds really digital. It sounds digital. It sounds really like a ransom note type of thing.
You have a delay.
Right.
Skip delay.
Okay. All right. Well, I promise not to use no profanity. Okay. So you take the delay off. Well, I think that is obviously. Can you hear me? Am I all sounding all right?
You're clear. Yep.
Okay. So, Spirit Child, obviously you gave it some thought, and we all should give it some thought. And you talk about how antiquated the prison system is, and how it's made, how it's designed that way. Just to tap into that for a minute, prison system was for rehabilitation. That's why you went. If you were found guilty of a crime, they wanted you to come out a better person than you went in. So I'm a little older than you. So when I was a kid, when you went into prison, you was able to go to college. But what happened to that? It was just like the Great North Migration. People that don't look like us don't want better for us. They still want to cage us and oppress us and keep their knee on our neck. And one of the things that they try to do that is they said, why should we be able to, people who's incarcerated, be able to go to prison? Be able to go to college for free when I got to pay. So now, instead of coming out a better person, productive person, can do something, what have you, productive, and you don't have to worry about coming in your house and being startled by a burglar, they did away with that. So all these things is by design. So we have to look at the system that may be more for us, such as like Kwanzaa. You know, it talks about Kwamba, creativity, Kujichagulia, self-determination, and also talks about our brothers' problems and our sisters' problem being our problem, and we solve them together. And that's kind of what this pandemic kind of brought us back down to a bare necessity, the bare essence. Because now it's new problem, but there's new streams of revenue. Who thought before this year that if you sell masks, that you can actually make a fortune selling masks? So, necessity is the mother of invention. But I see Mariposa wants to say something. So by all means. You have your hand up,
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
We can, but it's
How about now? No.
It's an echo. You're coming in like an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Mark, can you correct that?
Maybe sign off and come back in.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Mariposa, say something again.
Yeah, she should try it now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she signed.
So I'm going to put it back on, and then we'll see. Otherwise, I think Spirit Child got the right idea. She would have to sign off and then sign back on. But let's try one more time. I'm going to take myself out.
Okay. Try it again, Mariposa.
Okay.
Did you unmute yourself?
No, what she did was she took herself off, and then I guess coming back on. But in the meantime, I wanted to share a comment by Espy.
I actually want to respond to that too.
Yeah, good. Let me just read it, and then you could go to it. It says we are all dealing with the many changes that capitalism's COVID brings. Art opens us up to reality, to the present, and the deep pain of alienation. It forces us to deal with the alienation from self, from the others, and we understanding there is nowhere to go. How are you dealing with all this? What's coming up for you? What do you recommend we do? And Robert, you wanted to talk to address that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then
So
and as soon as Mariposa comes on, I'll take myself off again.
cool. Well, thank you again for the opportunity. The things that come to mind is, and I'm going to repeat this over and over again, is what is it that you can control, right? So irrespective of who's in office, it didn't stop me from improving my credit score. That's something I worked on, my money management skills. I don't care who's in office, quite frankly. I don't and anything I focus more on what I can do, right? So for example, I'm a sober dude. I don't I rarely ever drink. Smoking is not my thing. No judgment, but it's just how I'm wired, and that type of stuff doesn't appeal to me. But I am highly interested in empathy. It's one of the things that basically kept me out of trouble and helped me become a better person. And so I'm reading about addiction. So like I'm taking the time to read this book. It's called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. I don't know if you can see that. But yeah, like I think learning about communities that even if you don't relate, because a lot of the things that happened in COVID too, a lot of kids, went through a lot of not good things with their parents, you know. Same thing amongst relationships, a lot of turbulence. Now the partner that you were kind of dealing with, now you're stuck with them 24/7, and you got kids and you're economically stressed. Like when unemployment goes up, child abuse goes up. Like there's certain realities that come with stress, and people are people at the end of the day. You stress people out, and sometimes it brings good things, but most of the time it brings bad things too. And like so that being said, I'm learning to empathize with people. I focus on the things that I can control. And even if it's a community that I don't relate to, I want to understand, because 10 years from now, all those people who maybe didn't have the outlets or didn't know how to deal with that type of stress, maybe they went into drugs or alcohol or found porn addiction or whatever it is. Like addiction could be just you eating cheesecake 3 times a day. Like that's just as toxic. But people dismiss that, like, oh no, like don't tell me what to eat. I'm like, well, you're professing to wear masks as because it's healthy and it's better for our health collectively, but you don't want to talk about your own health. Like manage your own health. Like stay as fit as you can, stay as healthy as you can. And if your resources are low economically, maybe you can't afford to go to Whole Foods, but maybe you could maybe prepare smaller meals. Like there's little things that you can do irrespective of where you are economically. And I think that's important. A lot of times people want to like sit here and kind of like they take a stance of a conquistador. It's like, yeah, man, we know we want to civilize people here with what I'm doing. And I think on the opposite side, it's kind of like, how can I learn more about communities that I don't understand? So that way, in the future, if this becomes a bigger problem, I can communicate with them and empathize with them better. So yeah, so those are some examples, and another example too. Things that have come up, like I think because I've been cooped up, I've actually been focused more on my art. I've been producing more art. I've had the opportunity to go on events that some are in Spain, or it's a mixture of like here in the United States and Spain at the same time, or in Chicago and Mexico, and I don't have to travel anywhere. So it's not all negative, Whereas, well, before the pandemic, I was hopping around from New York, spots here in New York, and then with the pandemic, it was like, oh, I've always wanted to do a tour of the United States, but now I can just do it from the comfort of my home. I just join a Zoom call, and I'm like, boom, I'm in Chicago, I'm in Mexico, I'm in Spain, I'm in different places, and I'm like, this didn't take any effort. It's just kind of like the tools were there, and now that everybody's moving in that space, it's like people sometimes complain about hip hop and how, oh man, back in the day it used to be like, and I'm like, dude, just adapt. It's okay. Like art changes, things change. Like, not everyone's going to be Leonardo da Vinci. You know what I mean? So I think it's good to embrace culture, adapt, and also to lastly, economically support, local artists. Like I'm an artist too, but this is a card that my friend make, and I went to her Etsy shop. Cost me $20 to buy a pack of cards from her. these are little things. You know, you can find ways to support other people in your community, and I think it's important, man. Take control of what you can economically. Take control of your health. Connect with people, bond with people, even if you don't relate to them. Learn about them, understand them, empathize with them, and find ways to support your community.
Thank you. I was reading a comment too by Jessica. It says, definitely, I think this is critical time for positive change. This is something that you was touching on, Robert, that we need to initiate and follow through on. If we don't, then the alternative is one that we will not benefit, or poor working class communities and community of color. And I go back to like Dr. Milana Karenga with the principle of Kwanzaa, and like I said earlier, Kuamba, creativity. I mean, we are creative people. The highest form of admiration is imitation, and the world, they hate us and they love us in the same breath. They try to hold us down, but they emulate everything and every aspect from our music to our dance to our lips. I mean, to our looks. And I fortunately said lips, but you can say lips too because they put Botox in their lips, their hips, and everything else. Okay, so I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And briefly, I do want to say too about education too, because there's plenty of studies that indicate that lack of education, there's just an increase. There's a correlation between crime and education. And I will say too, if you can't acquire a formal degree, it doesn't mean that you can't educate yourself. I barely graduated high school, and I was like, dude, I got to figure something out. I'm not planning on getting 50 G's in debt just to get a regular job. Like, there's ways you can educate yourself and manage your temperament, and try to live a better life, like take control, take charge of whatever you can, man. These decisions I made when I was 15 that really changed my life for the better. Again, I didn't pay attention to who was president or who wasn't, or who's like, I'm not saying that that's not relevant. Clearly it is. But if you're spending 8 hours talking about red and blue, like, you could have been just talking about that for an hour, spend 7 hours on your temple. You got this, you got this beautiful mind and body, but you're talking about red and blue for 8 hours. I mean, spend an hour on that and 7 hours on you, and you'll be well informed about what's going on politically too. Like, but don't forget about you. You are a powerful being. You are important. It's not just about the grand scheme of things. Like, you literally are the grand scheme of things, and once you acknowledge how important you are in the grand scheme of things, that is how shift occurs. But most people, what I see is they kind of like, point a finger at like, oh man, the system, this, and the shit is real. The system, that there's plenty of oppressive vehicles I can list, I could spend here till I'm blue in the face, and the shit is real. But I also acknowledge, like, I'm a powerful dude. I don't look at myself any more beneath like somebody who's in power like the president. I'm like, he's a human being just like me, so what power do I have? And in the same way, if I see somebody who's homeless, like, I'm not any better than that person. They're important too, and so, like, once we realize that we're all important, and how we treat ourselves and how we treat the people around us, like, can I get along better with my friends? Can I get along better with myself? Can I treat myself better? Can I manage my stuff? And I acknowledge that, sometimes I'm not perfect, and I'm quite imperfect actually. And, once I face those imperfections, I could get better. But if I ignore and just act like I'm some self-righteous do-gooder and don't ignore all the negative, then that negative stuff is bound to come out. And that's one of the beautiful things about this situation here. We've been cooped up. It kind of forces you to really sit beside yourself for a really long time and go, damn, I got a lot to fix. Like, the cracks on the wall that Mariposa was talking about, you can ignore that and act like it's nothing, but then it's not going anywhere. But here we are, so yeah, man, that's my point on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that. And basically, in a nutshell, what I think Rob is saying that is that you gotta believe in yourself and don't give up on yourself. Reinvent yourself, recreate yourself, love yourself, and spend time with yourself, knowing yourself. In order to help somebody else, you gotta be able to help yourself. And we thank you for that, Robert. Mariposa, you got a poem Mark said that you had for us?
Just a little
You
something that
can
I'm
you say
working
testament?
on. Testing, testing. I
Can we
like
hear
my
it?
mic. 1, 2, uno, dos, tres,
You sound
cuatro.
good. Might sound right.
Yeah, I just want to say
Go ahead,
to
take it away.
anyone who's out there also that, to be gentle with yourself. And if you don't have the energy to be super productive, that's okay also. And I have had to just let go and say, I don't have to be producing. Like, take advantage of this time is what, you know, it's resisting that. Just, yeah. So this is inspired partly by Spirit Child, because I got a hook, and you could like play with this. Like, you could take this hook, because I know you could do something with it. And then SB, who suggested this particular song as that it ends with it, but this is just a little something that I wrote that I am going to actually and thank you, People-Pueblo Party, because I'm gonna type this little poem up, and I'm gonna tape it by the mailbox of my building, and by the elevator, so people can see, and maybe it'll inspire people. So it starts off with a prayer. In the words of Lukey, I feel like time will now fly. So bless us, God, bless us all, bless us with the childlike understanding of the old ones, bless us with the love of love. Why I cover my face. They say to protect the vulnerable ones, to wear a mask and cover your face. In the times of COVID, where survival means we must distance, get tested, and trace. Wisdom comes with experience. The best defense is offense. Pay attention to the sixth sense instead of a sick sense. Refusing to mask up is not the resistance we need. Some refuse to take heed, thinking instead of their own needs. And with the flow of disease in the air and the grim reaper staring us all in the face, it is the kind smile in the eyes of the masked elders I choose to embrace. I think of the old ones. I cover my face. Ponte la máscara, ponte la máscara, ponte la máscara. Esta pandemia es una jodienda. Ponte la máscara, ponte la máscara, ponte la máscara. Enfermarse es una jodienda. Ponte la máscara, ponte la máscara, ponte la máscara. La muerte es una jodienda. Thank you very much.
And you know what? I appreciate it. I like the hook. It was good. And I write poems, and I really don't recite them. I recite them for my family. But because of the pandemic, this is kind of like ties into everything that everybody was saying today. I got a poem that I think I'm gonna write. I'm pulling out right now, and it's entitled COVID-19. You hand me that over there. Let me. If you'll give me 1 second. Let me get it.
Look what you're doing, Mariposa. You inspiring people all over the world. That's great.
He's telling the truth because I really don't read it, but I'm gonna pull this one out, and I ain't read in a while, so I'm making my excuses already. So if I got the right book, is this the right book?
If you need any encouragement,
Yeah,
shout
I
and
think
say,
this is
get it,
it.
Bill, get it, Bill.
Nah, I'm just gonna wing it. I haven't read it in a while, but hopefully it'll flow. Uh, I rewrote it. I don't know which one is this. This is it. Yeah, this is it. Okay. Yes, Mariposa. I guess coming out. You did inspire me. So thank you. All right. This is a poem that I wrote while I actually had COVID in March, the end of March, and the beginning of April. So while I was sitting home, I started writing, and this is titled COVID-19. Ambulance, streets empty, mass people, homeschooling, no fooling, shelves empty, rest of plenty, bars closed, no cars being sold, nowhere to drive, in our houses we hide. Fear of fever, or either runny nose and watery eyes. Who's the boss? The orange Easter egg, who boasts of this being some democratic hoax? Are you kidding or just ridding the world of a 500,000 black boys and girls? I'm just thinking as I'm blinking, man, how quick things change. Do we even have a plan? Will this happen again to any more of my friends? And if so, will we then know that every second is precious and every person is priceless and every passing second has done just that, pass? So let's love like it's the cure and reflect on how fleeing life can truly be. COVID 19 won't conquer me. So that's my COVID 19 point. You inspired me to come out of my stuff. So I thank
Nice.
you. All right. All right. So it's 9 o'clock. I think that we had a good cross section of things, inspirational things, to think outside of the box, think about how society tries to drag us down, and how we can't let society lock our minds up, and how we have to look inside our own culture and pull from there because we've always had this struggle, but we've always been originating. And like I always said, I like to say it's two types of people: it's originators and it's imitators. And the highest form of admiration is imitation. And as long as people are going to imitate us, let's keep letting them imitate. Let's keep reinventing ourselves. Let's keep going back to the motherland and going back to our roots, whether it be our music, whether it be our artwork, our religion, or whatever, our style, our grace, our pizzazz, our dare to flaunt what we have, which they do not have, which they can try, but they can emulate, but can never duplicate. Let's keep being who we are because we are wonderful people. And like Love, Robin Love said, you got to love yourself. Like Mariposa said, send people things, thoughtful things. You lost a life, you might be down and out. Plant a seed in the summer. It gives you hope. You water it. You take it as a person, as a member of your family. It's an extension of you. So when people try to get you down, realize that they haven't come to the realization that if they love their self, they wouldn't do this to me. So feel for them, pray for them, reach for them, and heal for them. So if anybody else have anything else to close in, by all means, you be my guest. You got anything, Spirit Child or Robin
Just got
Mariposa, 30
one,
seconds?
one thing to say. I was in what you were saying earlier, Bill. I mean, I know these conversations like got our minds going, but during from June over the summer, I've been reading articles and people have been fearing like going out there, and just to say to all the people who have been out in the streets, it's really important to be gentle on yourself, right? Like not to shame each other for doing what they got to do, and scientifically, factually, like less than 1% of people have contracted positive for COVID during that time of protesting and going out there and doing their thing. And we've been out there. And I also want to just give some love to our political prisoners. We've been heavy with the Maroon campaign. Maroon contracted COVID after having stage 4 cancer. So we've been working with the family. We wrote like a 77 letter campaign. There's things that we can do, even if it's not artistic. We can still uplift our people. Also, Dr. Matulu Shakur, we just found out this particular week, this past week, that he also contracted COVID. So we also got to think of our people on the inside. Like I know I talk a lot about prison, but like, there's an experiment that's happening that we are feeling certain things here, but there's a lot going on with our comrades that are on the inside, and any artistic upliftment, any way that we can shed that light a candle. Big up to Abatala son here, Bafede Fungo Abatala Chango all day, every day. Spiritually, whatever you do architecturally, you have to bring that energy because we all need that, and there's no shame in your game. Whatever your game is, as long as you protect yourself and protect the people. We fed the people on Thursday at Jacob's Restaurant in Harlem, and all of us, Zulus, Black Panthers, we were like, had a poll. Physical distancing, because we can't believe in physical distancing. We have to be social. We have to be together. We have to still understand that there's another pandemic behind the pandemic, right? I don't want us to socialize, and we have to socialize. So we still maintain that because people need to eat. And we're out People's Church on 111th, Young Lord's Way. We out there every Saturday and still trying to maintain social distancing, physical distancing, right? But our people, because they still need boxes of food to eat, like people still need to go out there, commute, essential workers. We just have to really practice safety and the way that we know best and be creative with it. I love that, putting a poem, Mariposa, on your mailbox or whatever in your hood. Like that's something I was like, oh shit, I gotta think about that. Like Staten Island, I need to put some things up, you know? So I'm inspired by you every day. Robert and love you, brother. Bill, love you. Mark, People's Pueblo, love all y'all. Thank you for this.
Love you too. Love y'all.
Right.
So,
And
Thank
Sarah
you.
Feinstein said, let's love like it's the cure. And it's true. So
That's
did you want to
beautiful.
say anything
Yes.
in closing? Yeah. Did you want to say anything in closing, Mariposa? Because one thing that you did talk about another pandemic was racism and capitalism. So let's not forget about those things as well. If not, we're going to close with the fist. People, Pueblo power, and power to the people. All right?
Power to the people.
Pa'lante siempre.
Pa'lante. Siempre pa'lante.
Respect. All right.